Hello and good evening. My name is Bob Green. I'm the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of North Reading. We've got several agenda items and we have committee zoning appeals board quorum. So without any further delay, I would ask that while your matter is before the board, please be ready to be unmuted. And if your matter is pending and is still waiting, we respectfully ask, if you don't have anything to add to the matter at hand, to remain muted. The agenda in order tonight will start with 122 Marblehead Street, followed by 8 Burdett Road, followed by 22 Wright Street, and the last appeal item is 2 Fieldcrest Terrace. So with that in mind, and being noted, we'll open with 122 Marblehead Street on the petition of Laurie Truesdale. Is Mrs. Truesdale with us tonight?
Who was just signing in?
Okay,
I'm here. Yes, I am here with you tonight.
great, thank you. With the hearing notice, a virtual public hearing will be held by teleconference on Thursday, March 28th, 2024, on the petition of Laurie Truesdale, 122 Marblehead Street, North Reading, Mass, map parcel, for a special permit to raise chickens. Hello, Laurie. Again, if you might want to take a moment and let us know what's going on with the plan for your use of the property.
So the plan for the use of the property, as you can see, is in the back area. There's property's already fenced in. I'm sorry, my kids are not used to Zoom meetings. And then right about 20 feet away from the fence, we would like to put the chicken coop, which will be fenced in as well. So we'd like to raise, I think the Essex County Co-op said around 8 chickens is kind of the sweet spot. And we would like to be zoned for it.
Okay, great. Can you tell me about the neighborhood, just so we have an idea of how you're situated on Marblehead?
Absolutely. So behind me is Harold Parker State Forest. In front of me is Harold Parker State Forest. On either side of me, I have 2 great neighbors who fully support this. And we really don't have a lot of neighbors. We are in the middle of the forest, as you can see on the map. And we do have a dog. We haven't had a lot of issues with predators on our property because of the fence and the large dog. So we don't really abut anybody right now, and nor would we ever.
And correct me if I'm wrong, your property is up high. It's not.
Yes, we are.
It's not on what you might call common street level, so it's raised up.
No.
Okay.
No, we actually have several walls to get up to the property, purely for land retention.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else you might want to note regarding your petition?
No, I think that's it. It's, I mean, on a more personal note, it's something my kids always wanted to do. It's something I've always wanted to do, and it's something that they enjoy. So we're hoping for the best.
Okay, no, understood. Thank you for that acknowledgement and candor. As we are still within the public, is there anybody from Marblehead Street that might be in attendance tonight that might want to add anything to the petition? Feeling that, Laurie, have you had any conversations with the neighbors? Not that that's on you, but I know notice.
I have. I've been very open and honest with my neighbors. Another one stopped my husband the other day, and he's like, "Why is there an appeal you know, can she have the chickens? Can she not? He's like, no, 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 this is just the process. So I think my neighbors are all kind of in support of me doing this. And then there are other houses in the neighborhood that don't directly abut us, but they also have chickens without issues.
Okay. So once again, before we close the public hearing, if and go to the actually the board, does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Truesdale? Okay, hearing no. Does anybody want to make a motion to close the public hearing and to bring it to within discussion within the board?
Sorry, I do have a question.
Sure.
It's been, we had a little lull in chickens here. My memory serves that this also goes before Board of Health just to confirm everything's okay with septic. Is my memory accurate there?
So the septic is actually in the front of our house. The chickens are
Okay.
in the back of our house.
Okay, so then, thank you.
Is the area surrounding the entire coop fenced in or just in back of the coop? And would the chickens ever be outside the coop and risk going
So
into the
the
front of the
chickens-
yard or onto Marblehead Street?
They would never go out into Marblehead Street. So our entire backyard is already fenced in because of the
Perfect.
dog and the children. And because we did acknowledge when we bought the property, we want a dog, we want children. So to keep them safe, we have to fence the yard. Will they be out of the coop every once in a while? I would say they should be let out. It's for the best interest of the chickens, but not without supervision. Absolutely not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have nothing further for Mrs. Truesdale. Does any other member of the board have any questions or anything related to the petition or to ask before we close the public hearing? Having none, does anybody want to make a motion to close the public hearing and bring it to discussion within the board?
I move to close the public hearing.
Thank you. Got a second?
Hi, Brendan Riley, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Breen, aye. So within the board, having heard it, is there any thoughts or considerations that might strike you from the petition, Michelle or Brendan?
I'm supportive. I'd be ready to move to affirmatively approve if the other members don't have any other considerations.
I don't have any. I can't speak. Brendan?
I don't have any.
All right, great. So with that having been noted, does anybody want to bring a motion regarding the petition for 122 Marblehead Street?
Yeah, I move to grant a special permit for,
I think they had planned for 8.
yeah, plan for eight chickens to Lori Truesdale, located at 122 Marble Street, North Reading. Chicken coop should not be located any closer than 20 feet to the front lot line or 10 feet to the side or rear lot line. Roosters are not permitted, and the permit is subject to Board of Health regulations.
Great.
Thank you, Michelle. Could we get a second, Brendan?
Hi, Brendan Riley, second.
Okay, having noted that, all in favor of the petition as motioned by Michelle.
Michelle Bodine, aye.
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Breen, aye. Thank you, board. Thank you. And so Ms. Truesdale, the petition has been granted. And again, as is the case with all petitions before the board, there's a 20-day right of appeal, correct? And so at the end of that time, permit will be issued and you can get a formal copy from the town, the board at the town hall. And again, the primary, always remember that it's there's just the one guiding line on this is it's no roosters. That seems to be the
Not a problem.
the bright lines in all chicken coop applications. And that's pretty much it. Good luck with your chickens, your kids, and thank you for bringing this to the attention of the town for
Great.
formal notice.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time tonight, everybody.
Happy
Thank you.
chickens.
Yeah, we
Happy
do need
chicken.
we almost need a catchphrase like "Happy Chicken" or something, just to bring it full circle. Going along with the continuing on the agenda for tonight's matter, we have the matter of 8 Burdett Road, home occupation special permit for being brought by applicant Nicholas Catino. Is Mr. Catino with us?
Yes, I am.
Good evening, Mr. Catino. With you present, I'd like to read the hearing notice. Virtual public hearing will be held on Thursday, March 28, 2024, on the petition of Nicholas Catino for a home occupation special permit to run his office for his junk removal business out of his residence at 8 Burdett Road, North Reading, Mass, map 22, parcel 54, pursuant to Article 200-42 of the North Reading zoning bylaws. Good evening, Mr. Catino.
Good evening. How you doing today?
Good. If you could take a moment and let the board and the matter that you're seeking to do with your business permit application.
Yeah, so I recently just started my own junk removal company, and I was looking to get a business permit for my current residence here. There won't be any junk here or any trucks over here. I did have a trailer parked over here for a little bit while I was waiting for registration, but it'll just simply be for my admin work, accounting, marketing, just stuff like that, stuff that I would do normally at my laptop here at home.
Okay, so currently, are you in the business or is it beginning?
It's just beginning. I have already gotten a permit over in Suffolk County, and which is where I've been doing a majority of my business currently. But I live here in North Reading and would like to expand and get this permit here as well.
Okay. And again, it sounds like it's just to run the office and
Yes.
attendant matters from
Yes.
8 Burdett Road, not the location of any of the removal or the trucks or otherwise used for that purpose.
Yeah, it'll just be for admin work. Like there won't be any trucks here or any trash on the side of the road. That won't happen.
Okay. And unless you have anything further to add, is there anybody from Burdett Road or the area that is interested in the petition brought by Mr. Catino with us tonight that might want to add something to this to the matter? All right, hearing none. There were 2 additional pieces of information included in the packet. One dated March 6, 2024, to whom it may concern. Please note, as the owners of 8 Burdett Road, North Reading, Anthony and Dina Catino, we authorize Nicholas to run his office for his Junktopia business out of our residence at 8 Burdett Road, North Reading, Mass. Thank you, Dina Catino. So, Mr. Catino, I'm assuming you're related to Anthony and Dina Catino?
Yeah, they're my parents. They own the house.
That's fine. In addition, there was a note put in the file dated March 27, 2024 from Community Planning. In response to your request for comment, the CPC offers the following. The CPC does not object to the application, provided all provisions of section 200-42 home occupations are adhered to. So just wanted to note that for the record. Unless there's anything further from the public, can I get a motion to close the public hearing from the board at this time?
I, Brendan Riley, move to close the public hearing.
Thank you. On that motion, all in favor of closing the public hearing regarding 8 Burdett Road?
Brendan
I
Riley, aye.
second, and then I vote to close.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Brendan. Bob Breen, aye as well. So, is, did any, does the board have any concerns or questions that relate to the petition from Mr. Catino for 8 Burdett Road?
I don't. You're on mute.
So you're storing all your vehicles and equipment currently off-site, not in North Reading? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, I have 2 locations. I have one in East Boston and then one in Andover.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
So as is the case, and I'm assuming that you're aware of the rules, especially for purposes of a home business occupation permit, that again, the vehicle storage is always a question. It's not permitted except for a single vehicle as might be needed, as well as no signage or storage that will in any way affect the exterior appearance, traffic, emissions, etc., in and around Burdett Road. And the permit of the use is only for your purposes only, it's non-transferable. Do you have any questions or concerns about that, Mr. Catino?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. I have no further concerns or questions for the petitioner at this time. If anybody else on the board does or doesn't, if not, if anybody would like to make a motion to close the hearing and bring this matter to a vote, we can move through this. Brendan or Michelle?
Sorry, I thought we
Okay.
closed.
We
Oh,
close.
sorry.
Does anybody want to bring a motion regarding the petition?
Yeah, Brendan Riley, moved to grant a home occupation special permit to Nicholas Catino to run his office for his junk removal business, Junktopia, from his home at 8 Burdett Road, North Reading, map 22, parcel 54, in accordance with Article 200-42 North Reading zoning bylaws and standard conditions as follows. No person other than the residential occupants shall be employed herein. No more than 300 square feet shall be devoted to such use, and there shall be no display of goods, wares, or signs related to the home occupation visible from the exterior. The special permit for a home occupation runs with the applicant and is in no way transferable. There will be no customers coming to the premises, and the special permit shall be valid for 4 years.
Thank you for the motion. Do I have a second?
I'm Michelle Bodian, second.
Okay, having had a second, call the matter to a vote. All in favor?
Brendan Riley, aye.
Michelle Bodian, aye.
Bob Breen, aye. Thank you, board. Thank you, Mr. Catino. The permit has been granted, and again, 20-day appeal period, after which you can get a copy of the from the town hall for whatever purposes you need it for your business management. And as always is the case, good luck with your business opportunities and efforts.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you for bringing the petition and formally putting it on record with the town. That's always appreciated for our own purposes. Thank you for that.
Of course. Thank you guys, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Having moved through that, looking for the next, excuse me, I'm just trying to find my agenda. Is anybody, oh, okay, sorry, thank you. Next matter on the agenda for tonight's meeting is 22 Wright Street. The variance for an addition through the applicant, Sean O'Halloran. Is Mr. O'Halloran with us?
Good evening, Sean O'Halloran is here, owner of 22 Wright Street.
Good evening, Mr. O'Halloran. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. So with regard to the hearing notice, a virtual public hearing will be held on Thursday, March 28th on the petition of Sean O'Halloran, 22 Wright Street, North Reading, Mass. Map 62, parcel 33 for a variance from the side yard setback to build an attached two-car garage with second floor master suite addition per the setback requirements per the dimensional and density regulations, North Reading zoning bylaws. If you might take a moment, Mr. O'Halloran, and explain to inform the board about the planned construction and your petition and need for the variance.
Absolutely. So I'm looking to do a variance. I know the setback was 20 feet on the property line. I had went for a variance back in 2020 that I believe was attached to this for a 24 by 24 addition. Currently, I'm approved for a new septic system that will be starting in the next week or two. And I moved that out of the way so that I could actually set this back a little further from the existing foundation. So I'm looking to do a 30 foot wide by 28 feet deep. The reason behind going a little bit bigger than what we did before, we're looking to add more space for like pantry and storage on our first floor in the kitchen area, as we don't have much storage, and add a bathroom on the first floor. And we're looking to stick with the same size dimension garage and upstairs master. It will be within a half a foot of the property line. The neighbor to the left of us at 20 Wright Street, he is built in the middle of two lots, and the lot closest to us, we have a measurement of 43 feet that will be between both foundations if approved. That side of his house is an unbuildable lot as it's his septic system and leaching field. I've lived here my whole life. I purchased the house off my parents, so I know all the neighbors since I was 5. So they all know me. They all support it. I had Scott Snyder attach a supporting letter for the project, stating that he supports our project going to the property line. If the proposed addition passes, it's going to be in line with our fence line, which is off the property line currently. So our family's expanding. We got a little one right now. We got one on the way, so we're looking for some more room without having to sell and go buy somewhere else.
Okay.
And this was approved through conservation last week, being within the distance to the wetlands. That was part of our septic plans as well.
Kathy, is there anything in the within the file regarding the notation he made for that?
For conservation?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I have a copy of the order of conditions that was issued. I have a copy of the septic plan here too, if you want to look at that.
So before we open this up to there's a couple of other notations. I know community planning had some concerns about the addition and the location. I'm not too sure. If Dave is with us tonight from community.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm here.
Hi, good evening, David. So it's as good a time as any to, as this is still within the public purview, um, to make any inquiries of the petitioner on the project.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. If the public doesn't know, the CPC reviews the applications for the public hearings for ZBA and just provides comment. We're not the ones that decide. It's entirely within the ZBA's purview. But our comments are usually like you heard with the chickens. It's usually very straightforward. It's no roosters and neighbors and all that stuff. And but this one popped up, and the only as far as the rest of the members, we were a little concerned with the size of the lot and it being, having a fourth bedroom added to it. So it's 4 bedrooms per the plans. And it just seems that, at only a fifth of an acre, that it just seemed in being sensitive to the wetland area. And I did understand there were some variances given to, to reduce the separation from, seasonal ground and reduce the stone bed and stuff. And I think that was done in good faith and to support the 3 bedrooms. But I would think a fourth bedroom with that kind of system, which has been reduced, and then just being on the fifth of an acre, we were concerned about that. So that was our comments. I'm not sure exactly how Danielle put it because she files that, Mr. Chairman, but that's just my recollection of it.
If I
Okay,
can touch on that part there. So this is going to be phase 2 of our project. We've already done some work over here, and I actually gutted the entire house, and we eliminated 1 bedroom when we had done the renovations. So 1 bedroom, a good section of it is a chase for our ductwork, and we didn't end up putting a closet back in. So we made that like our office slash just like an extra storage room at this point. There's no real space in there to have, a bed or any bedroom furniture. So it's gonna still stay a 3 bedroom. And we're aware if we ever go to sell, which we don't plan on in the near future, we'll be selling as a 3 bedroom home if we do the addition.
Mr. Chairman, if that was addressed towards me, or that's fine with me. And I think it's really, I just defer to the building inspector, Jerry, on whether, what constitutes a bedroom in their view, or, was a permit recently pulled, to make those renovations. And if that's the case, then, what you say is probably fine, so again, we're looking at it without having all that information. When we're asked about it, we reviewed it on our last meeting on the 19th, Tuesday. So
if you were to call that, excuse me, Mr. Chair, if he were to call that room what he's in as an office and leaves it open, then it wouldn't be constituted as a bedroom. So I already spoke with Board of Health director, and basically he told me as long as you keep it as such and you make sure that it's classified as an office and that all your permitting is set as a 3 bedroom.
so to that point, and again, to the question for Mr. O'Halloran, I mean, these distinctions that people make between what is bedrooms, what aren't. A lot of times, respectfully, the examination of a property is done at its outset. Building inspectors go in, all the inspection services go in, and then final, grant of occupancy. And then people do with their properties what they do with their properties. And everybody kind of takes, and I'm not, this is just a comment on this the way the world is and how these things go. The concern by the Board of Health is the one that is, other than the push upon an overreach of existing space between properties, the variance that you're seeking before this board tonight. But at the same time, what is the concerns raised by Board of Health, maybe more so than probably a lot of the things we do, that one has a far-reaching effect, given it, as you know, a lifelong resident of North Reading, and that's always appreciated when people come before the board. You know, we live in a town that survives on septic, and a septic failure or a stress upon one system has an impact on, you know, indirectly the town, but obviously the nearest neighbors. So this, you know, this is where it gets to be a little bit of a concern for, in this case, Mr. Knoll, who raised it, and also obviously the Board of Health. But again, these things, if they're clearly stated as being this, that, or the other thing, that, you know, the other part of the practical thing is once this is built, it's built. And that is obviously, in my view of our involvement on behalf of the Board of Appeals, that's where our role is really probably most important, because what decisions we make might change or alter a plan that could create problems going into the future. Not that I'm saying that is the case here, but again, this is why these concerns that have been raised, most especially regarding the Board of Health and their concerns over the stress upon a septic. And I know you noted that you have a new system that's going in. You know, I'm just gonna, I just, in the immediate, that those are the issues that jump out to me just in this presentation alone, notwithstanding the underlying and the formal request to move closer to the, in this case, the abutting property.
No, I understand. To add to that, you know, 3 years ago, you know, we were approved for the 24 by 24 with a 28-year-old septic system. Yeah, obviously this time here we want to go a little bit bigger and, you know, get as much out of it as we can, as much room. But now we're doing a brand new system that, you know, is stated to go, you know, longer lifespan than the older systems have. And to my knowledge, this system here is a oversized 3-bedroom system. Because of the space we have, they couldn't technically call it a 4-bedroom system. We had tried to go for it, but there was just not enough room back there to do it. So it is an oversized 3-bedroom, but it's not a 4, if that helps out at all.
Well, you know, probably the more seasoned member of this conversation is Mr. Knoll. And, you know, if at some point during the conversation, Mr. Knoll, you have any thoughts on that, they might be welcome, especially for the board, as we consider all of this.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, he would be required by the Board of Health to file a 3-bedroom restriction. If that helps.
And again, that would, in the usual process, would that usually go before Board of Health, before coming before us for, in this case, I mean, we haven't even begun to discuss the position that he's moving closer to, again, the neighbor, as it were. But, you know, I'm trying to approach this pragmatically in some regards. And because the time, no disrespect, Mr. O'Halloran, but if the Board of Health, you know, approves and acknowledges that they're okay with the 3-bedroom, the restriction, if that's what's needed, then it comes to us just on really the other, and the one that you noted in your petition tonight for to move the you know, to build closer and in need of the variance for towards your along the buffer, the adjacent property. So Jerry, you know, is that in the usual course of these matters, is that probably the better flow, or is it just going to be assumed that they're just going to restrict them to 3?
They would automatically have him fill out a full deed restriction to restrict them to 3.
Okay,
At the time he
We
applied
were
for the
told,
building
we were
permit.
told that.
Yeah,
that the-
because we would not give him a building permit unless he has that deed restriction in place.
okay, thank you.
we were told that through the engineer when we had tried to go for the 4-bedroom. And he said that there would be a deed restriction on that as well, adding this, that it would always be considered a 3-bedroom house, 3-bedroom system. And where we converted that bedroom originally into an office and got rid of the closet space and all that, it'll still be a functional 3-bedroom with the addition.
Okay, because I guess, you know, and again, Dave Rudolph, you know, we don't have anything other than that representation. Given that, does that address any of the concerns you raised, or had wanted to, on that point regarding the septic for purposes of planning, or the view from planning?
Yeah, I mean, again, we only had limited information, just the application on the 19th. And so we make comment based on what we see. And that was our reaction and our comment. And I'm satisfied, you know, with the explanation by Sean and Jerry's recommendation or how it works, you know, administratively. If that's how it's done, you know, we're good on our end.
Okay. And again, a lot of this flows from an acknowledgement by Bob Racy of the Board of Health, and you know, going so far as to note that the applicant needs to submit new proposed engineered plans for the 4-bedroom, but that seems to have been, so that's no longer an issue here. I just want to make that clear for the record, Mr. O'Halloran. We're talking strictly a 3-bedroom construction, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And so now comes back to the placement of the property along the abutting property. So for that purpose, and I know you noted in your presentation before the board has any questions that the immediate neighbor, Scott Snyder, supported this. To that point, just for the record, in a letter letter to the board dated March 8, 2024, I, Scott Snyder of 20 Wright Street, fully support the proposed addition requested by Sean Brianna O'Halloran of 22 Wright Street. Our properties abut the flagged property line. My house is built in the middle of 2 lots, and the lot closest to the O'Halloran's property line is unbuildable space due to being my septic system. The design will add great character to their property and will add great value to our neighborhood. As long as I can own this property, the septic will not be relocated. Sean O'Halloran and myself took measurements between properties and is proposed build from my foundation located at 20 Wright to their property line is 42 feet. In their proposed addition foundation, it will approximately 43 feet will be in line with their fence line that is 30 feet off of their foundation. The distance between my house and their property line is greater than the opposite side, which is only 28 feet 6 inches between 22 Wright and 24 Wright Street. As for this, I support the proposed addition plans for them to build the 30-foot by 28-foot addition that will be 6 inches from our property line. Just for the just to note, I know we have a number of people within this is Mr. Snyder or anybody related to Mr. Snyder with us tonight. Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else here from 22 Wright Street? that might want to add anything to the petition brought by Mr. O'Halloran? Okay, hearing none. Does the board have any questions for Mr. O'Halloran regarding the planned development?
Yes, Mr. O'Halloran, it looks like, at least from the Google latest street view I pulled up of the property, your plan that you submitted with your filing shows a gravel drive on one side, the opposite side. It's not showing up. Is that something you're looking to add in as well? Or is that currently there
On the opposite side of the property?
on the opposite side of the proposed addition to your, I guess, a butter on the other?
Yeah, that's a it's just like a gravel, like dirt path to the double gates that I have to get into the backyard.
Okay, so that gravel path is currently there?
Yeah, it's there. No cars are parked over there or anything like that. It was more so trucks getting in and out, and that's gonna be all cleared up once the septic is finished.
Okay,
So that's not gonna be a permanent structure over there.
okay.
That's just so we with all the rain and stuff, we don't have a big mud pit and ruin the yard in between.
All right. And then the need to go, I guess, call it the extra 6 or so feet from your previous filing is because you want to add a larger pantry in the kitchen area?
So what we did was before our design before the home kind of looked more boxy. It was like a big box. So now we redesigned it to almost have like more character, look like a farmhouse. So we're looking to do like a little breezeway in between, do a bigger pantry and a bathroom. And that way there, it doesn't take away from the space in the garage. Uh, if we had done that in the previous, it took space in the garage and we weren't able to have 2 full cars parked in there. Um, so we're looking to store two vehicles in there with nothing in the way and have the bathroom and pantry in the house instead of being like in the garage area. So it's just more functional. It's a nice area to have like a mud room. Kids are coming home from sports or whatever, or people to hang jackets, anything like that. So it just gives more room inside the home.
Gotcha.
More so character we went for.
So for all intents and purposes, it's, I mean, all due respect, it's more of an aesthetic as opposed to a need.
The design is more aesthetic. The need for the space is what we're looking for.
It sounded like obviously you've been before the board a couple of years ago. Had you considered different variations, going more vertical rather than horizontal with the design? I guess, how did you land on this configuration?
Just from designs that we've seen, just driving through different neighborhoods and stuff like that. It was more vertical and it was basically the current home right next to each other. So it looked like I had 2 of the same houses next to each other, and it wasn't eye catching. So we want something that, will bring character to the neighborhood, bring value to the neighborhood. And we wanted a little breezeway to separate the garage from, our mud room, our pantry, and the bathroom that we want to try to do on the first level.
Kathy, do we have a copy of that previous filing at all that shows the prior layout or design?
And do we have a copy of the first level? Maybe I'm missing it in the packet.
I don't know if I have the plans for the first one, but I do have the interior of this one.
The first
Yeah, I
level?
see that.
Yeah, hold on a minute.
It's on page 20, Michelle. Or not, sorry, not page 20.
Yeah, isn't that the second floor? Where's the
That's
first
the
one?
second floor. Yeah, sorry. I'm not seeing the first floor. The sounds of it, it looks like you're just basically, from your old design onto the new one, you added that breezeway. Is that correct? Sean, sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, so we added that breezeway so that we're not restricted to always, go through the garage if we don't have to. And we have that extra door to go into where the
Okay, that
mudroom.
makes sense. That's your 4, almost 5 feet there now. So
Yeah,
that's your
the
4'10".
So the first floor is if you so where that bathroom is on the existing, below that is where the kitchen is. So then that goes over, I want to say is downstairs is 5'10" is the pantry, bathroom, and I don't know if it's on here. I thought I sent it
Yeah,
all.
the first floor. Mhm.
Kathy, is that something you want me to send to you right now?
If you can, or you can share your screen if you have it up. Do you have it on your screen?
I would I was barely able to get on this. Hang
Yeah,
on.
you can send it to me.
Okay, because I have those here. I'll send those to you right now so that everyone can see the first level. All right, I just sent that. Sorry, guys.
I think because it was two-sided, I might not have got it,
Okay.
or I didn't get it in there. You seeing it?
Yeah. Do you mind zooming just a little bit? So please shove my face on the screen for everyone to see. Thank you. Okay, so that is the 5 to 6 feet is the breezeway.
And that's your second
Yep.
bathroom.
Is that the only bathroom on the main floor?
Yes.
Where's the existing bathroom? I know you said you're renovating.
Existing bathroom is on the second floor, so we just have one full bathroom right now. So we're proposing to add this first floor half bath and a master bathroom in the master bedroom.
And the previous design had it where the stairs are?
Yeah, so basically the previous design didn't have a pantry. It was basically like a small closet that we wouldn't really have much storage in, and it didn't have the breezeway, and it was the back section of the garage. And the staircase was actually in the garage where now we'll be in that breezeway, so we take less space away and able to fit a car in there comfortably.
So ultimately, the question I think obviously that has to be asked in these situations is the necessity and the hardship, the want and desire, and anybody would want to obviously maximize the value of their property for practicality purposes as well as everything else that goes with it. And there's also an aesthetic value that was noted in Mr. Snyder, the letter that he submitted, and would be encouraged for purposes of conformity, uniformity within the town itself. But it for the board, this is what, now that we've, I mean, obviously resolved the Board of Health issues, at least in the immediate, and with good confidence going forward, restricting it to a 3-bedroom. Does anybody have any at this time, while we're within the public hearing, want to discuss with the petitioner, Mr. O'Halloran, and necessity, the hardship that often is underlying all grants for variances, especially those that are attendant to building.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would, Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that he noted in his plan that he shows 4 bedrooms. He needs to make sure that he changes that and he shows that one of those walls is going to be open. And that'll be an office. So you need to show that you're gonna have 3 bedrooms there. And that needs to be put in with your deed restriction.
Yeah, we could absolutely do that, Jerry. I could reach out to my architect if everything gets approved. He hasn't done the building design yet for us, because we were waiting to see if the variance was granted. But he could definitely make that a note that it's an office space. We could show that it doesn't even have a door on it if you would like, and that could be registered with our deed.
Please, thank you.
Am I looking at these stairs correctly? That there'll be 2 stairs up, one in the old house, one in the addition?
Yeah, so the stairs that you see going up, so that's where the 5'6" comes in. So that's the breezeway. So that'll be the door's gonna be at the driveway level, and the stairs are gonna go up into the mudroom, pantry, and bathroom. And then currently, right now, where the kitchen ends, that's a window. So that's gonna be just a walkway. There's gonna be no door there, and the stairs that say down, that goes down to a platform that currently has a exit door from my basement, and the stairs going up are coming from the basement. Oh, I'm sorry. Those stairs are going up to the second
The
floor.
second floor, okay.
Yeah, so the downstairs are going to the basement right now, but that door is going to be closed off, and that's what the breezeway is for, with the stairs going up.
Okay, but just up to the pantry bath, not up all the way to the second floor?
Correct. Yeah, so the door coming in from the driveway will be at driveway level. So you could either come in from the garage or the driveway, go up, and that'll bring you into the pantry, kitchen, and then you could go down into the basement, and then if you come around towards the front of the house, the stairs going up go to the second floor. So there'll be no access to the second floor in the addition, only from the main house, original main house.
Okay. And then was there consideration to go back rather than to the side? I'm struggling with it being so close to the
So-
neighbor, even acknowledging they're okay with it and where they're set out, but is there a septic issue in back to get to Bob's point about hardship?
Yeah, so we had to move our septic to do anything. The old tank was basically where the pantry is. So now he set the tank back as far as he can to get our distance off the property line and the foundation. So the septic system is 10 feet back from the foundation, the proposed foundation. So we set it back. Originally, it was only back 2.5 or 3 feet. It was set back, but now we went 3 more feet just to get a little bit more space for a mudroom and a pantry, and space for us on the first level. And then, so the fence line is at 30 feet. The house is gonna hopefully end at the 30 feet with the fence line, and there won't be any access to the back of our yard. Unless you were to go through the garage, and that way there, we wouldn't be going on, his property all the time to get in the back of the fence. Or the backyard. So. If that helps.
Was your previous design just for a one car garage?
It
When you know that you could essentially only fit 1 car in there.
Yeah, it was almost like a 1.5. I mean, they set it up as a 2-car garage, but it was only 1 door, and it wasn't able to fit two cars like full length on either side.
I don't have any other questions.
All right. Well, before we close the public hearing, And so, just to be clear, on my part, you know, I understand all of what Mr. O'Halloran is trying to achieve here, and I acknowledge, you know, the most directly, if you wanted to call it that, the most immediately impacted party is, you know, the Snyder property that directly abuts and is most encroached upon by the expansion beyond what was originally granted, which I don't think is even before the board today, because at that time, that was a necessity of, if I correct me if I'm wrong, the situation regarding the existing septic, which is now going to be resituated, as well as the construction itself. But again, breezeway is nice, larger garage is nice. Who wouldn't want those things? But again, a variance is the hard and fast of our authority here is one of, you know, showing a hardship. And by that, maybe we all have our own definition of it, or a true one. Now, here's an interesting thought. And, you know, I'm not too sure in this case, the Snyders. I mean, I have concerns that as he noted in his letter, that space between the two properties that he owns is where his septic lies. So it's unbuildable for him. But, you know, it's still this construction is going to bring it all the closer to that tank and or field or whatever it is that's situated on that. And that could be impacting him. And I don't know if he's taken, I have a concern in the back of my mind. Does he understand what this means? Because if he runs into a problem with he might not have the flexibility he needs because of this construction, which now at this time he thinks is okay. But, you know, all due respect, none of these things are certain. So, you know, so I take that as a measure as to why, you know, whenever a hardship is to be acknowledged for a variance, that it has to be something more than just, you know, what you're trying to do with the addition. Is it truly needed and necessary? We've had prior parties before this board that, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle or Brendan, but, you know, they turned the property design, they basically spun it a little to make it look better or sit better, but in doing so, they expanded it and needed a variance. But, you know, they were okay before they did that, and now they weren't. And the board kind of found that curious. In this case, nothing is, you know, ground hasn't been broken. Designs can be altered. I know Michelle noted it somewhat earlier. So, you know, I think we owe it to Mr. O'Halloran to really pursue the question of true hardship here. And all due respect, sir, I'm not seeing it. I understand what you want to do here with your property, and I understand what you're trying to do with the property, you know, but maybe I'm just, you know, I'm not as persuaded in the immediate, and I'm wondering if the rest of the board has that thought, or if it is just something with me at this time.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, with the growing family, you know, we don't get granted it. It'll probably force us to move out of town, which we don't really want to do. Like I said, we're just trying to do better for our family and make this happen and make it work for us and, you know, add value to the street. I don't know if anyone has taken a ride by here. I know the last time I was in one of these meetings, every board member And I don't know if you guys have been on the board for a while, but everyone took a ride by and saw, the property line in between. And, his septic is further off the property. He's more so in the front of his yard. So there is still great distance between the property line and where his system is. But where it's an unbuildable lot, and he explained to me that if he were to do anything with that system, he'd have to, redo a lot of plumbing in his house, and it'd just be a major, major, major project for him that he doesn't want. And he's planning on being there long term as well as us if it goes through. And I just hope I get you guys' wishes.
Okay, then noted. Thank you for that. So if there's anything else before we close the public hearing and go to discussion amongst the board, is there anybody anything else to add before doing so? Michelle, Brendan, Jerry. Okay, hearing none, does anybody want to move to close the public hearing and bring it to a discussion within the board?
Michelle Bodie, move to close the public hearing.
All right, all in favor of closing the public hearing on the matter?
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Breen, aye.
Michelle Bodie and I.
Thank you. Again, just thoughts within the board. I see from all sides, and granted, the Snyder property is the one that is the most impacted by this change, or the grant of the variance, quite practically. But, I'll take Mr. O'Halloran at his representations, as well as the letter submitted by Snyder, that they're okay with it. And I do understand the idea of a hardship. Interestingly, the idea of, in any of these cases, growing families, economics, things like that. I'll take Mr. O'Halloran at his representation that if, with the size of his family and the changes in his family's lives, they do need the additional space. So that's as qualifying a representation of a hardship that they want to make, and it's understandable and can be noted. I'm just wondering within the board itself, if anybody has any thoughts on this, specifically to the granting of the variance to allow for their larger placement and obviously their movement towards the abutting property, that being the Snyder property.
Bob, with a longer institutional memory here, has this board granted a variance that close to a property line in recent years?
None that I can think of, but I wouldn't want to make a representation of reliability on that.
Okay, and not that previous decisions dictate this. I mean, I find the closeness and the fact that there already was a variance granted concerning, understanding the neighbor acknowledges and accepts it. And I know the letters say 0.6, but one of the surveys indicates 0.5 in certain areas. And we're talking about hardships, which financial hardships certainly could be relevant, but I would have preferred to see some more designs that go vertical or otherwise play with the configuration that isn't getting it so close to the property line.
Well, with to play the devil advocate on that, verticality also creates, an unevenness even to the neighborhood. I've been down Wright Street. It's, it's a small dead end, I believe. And, I have every belief that this design will, as everybody seems to have represented it, will add something to the neighborhood. And to that end, I can see why they want to add the breezeway and balance out the structure. And interestingly, as you put it, Michelle, go more horizontal than vertical. But
we would never have went for a variance being this close to the property line if it wasn't for the space that would be between us and 20 Wright Street. Because you're still gonna have, and I realize it's close to the property line, but you're still gonna have like 43 feet. I think we measured out from foundation to foundation. So it's not like the houses are gonna be smushed together because the street is pretty much spread out. The houses are, pretty far apart. So even going for this, and if the build goes through, you would still look and see, you could even put a house in between us and it would still be enough room. So it's not like we're going, tight, real tight to a house that we can look in their windows or anything like that.
Your thoughts, Brendan?
Did your previous design include that that second bathroom on the first floor?
Yeah, it was we had a bathroom, but we didn't have any pantry or mudroom space.
Okay, so essentially you're okay with having the bathroom. You just need
We're
the extra
looking for,
footage to
yeah, we're looking
for
for
more
the
pantry space and a mud room.
correct, correct. Yeah, something inside the house where instead of being in the garage.
Would you be able to, if you had put one car in the garage and park one outside, I'm assuming you could still pull out of the garage without the
So
other car being in?
we'll still have a full driveway. So we'll still be able to have, two cars in the driveway if we wanted to. Um, but the garage is, more so to protect the cars than being
Mhm.
on. And this garage, the whole street has garages, really, except for this property here.
So Brendan, with that, was that regarding the idea that it's
The
reaching
idea
too
that
far?
I'd like to potentially see just an alternate design that would bring it not so close to the adjacent property line. I mean, I'd like to have two car garages. It seems like the previous design is almost there. Sounds like you couldn't necessarily fit that second car in there, but it would give you enough room to put other objects, snow blowers or lawn equipment, child, bicycles, etc. And you could still park that second car outside without impacting pulling in and out of your garage, correct?
Yeah, like I said, we just don't want the cars in the elements. I mean,
Mhm.
nowadays you have 80, $90,000 vehicles that are out in the elements just getting destroyed. So I definitely want those, protected. And the driveway spaces, so if we have anyone over, guest or anything like that, they're still able to park in the driveway and not be in the street blocking any traffic.
I found the other plan if you want to look at that. Hold on just a minute.
So again, the question I raise again is, and this is, I wish I had a more solid answer to Michelle's question before. I mean, Jerry's the more senior of probably the five of us, if Kathy is included in all prior zoning matters. But it's still the question of, where it's one thing to go over. This is really quite a this is quite a grant for that. And again, it's a question of want and perception of necessity versus true hardship. And I'm not adverse to any of that. I still have concerns about the understanding of all of this by the Snyder property. But our job here is to, is there an alternative? Because I think that's might be what the, my fellow board members are trying to broach with Mr. O'Halloran. And as much as the prior design, is helpful in this conversation, it's still a question of, this plan shifted when the change to a newer septic system was realized. And that's great. But it's not a matter of going a foot or two. It is, ultimately, an accommodation to create a 5-foot interior breezeway, as well as what was a closet to now becoming a pantry. And they're all notable wants, but it's a question of hardship. And while your needs don't necessarily have to reflect those of the past decisions that are made by a board, or maybe even the future, it is just still a question of, the great thing you do have going for you in this matter is your agreeability of your neighbor, who is in the immediate, the one who is truly, if anybody is going to be impacted by this, it is that property. And the saving grace that you have is that the land that lies between your two lots is, if you go building to building, is, where his septic is sitting, and it's completely off limits, because he can't put anything over it, neither can you. So it's kind of a unique situation, and you do have that going for you. I'm just want to be clear to everybody that in the back of my mind, I'm just, this is quite a change in the variance request that was granted previous by this board, not this board particularly, but the sitting members at that time, because the design was what was needed. And at that time, they probably, because of the septic, because you were limited, the hardship was probably more persuasive, if not in whatever you want to believe is needed. So that's where I'm sitting, and I'm trying to be persuaded, good or bad. And that's where I'm trying to gather opinion from everybody in this hearing.
Yeah, no, I understand. We're just, we're trying to build our forever home, dream home. Just trying to stay in town, trying to avoid moving. Like I said, we've been here our whole life. I have, at least. I've lived in this residence my whole life, and it'd kill me to uproot my family and move. It's paying taxes here forever, and just want to do what's right for my family, and that's about it.
Brendan,
Kathy,
go ahead, thanks.
sorry, thank you. Kathy, is that the only visual from the first go round?
This is the front of it. The top floor.
Those are the existing house plans, but that is the proposed addition view right there. Previously.
From what I can see, the biggest, obviously the breezeway, looks like you might be losing assuming it's a shower on the first floor.
Yeah, we would be losing currently right now we don't have that pantry or bathroom anymore. That was the existing house.
Yeah, the existing design showed a small pantry. It still showed the bathroom.
Yeah.
Bathroom didn't obviously have the shower. It looks like the garage stays relatively the same, but I can see the stairway obviously would impact a second.
Yeah, and so where those stairs were, that whole back corner there, that was where I was talking, where the old where the bathroom and pantry closet would have went. So this here is showing the proposed front addition that we got permission to do in the first part of the project. We did that already. That's done. And then that's just a garage. But this is showing it with the existing layout of the house, so it doesn't show that new bathroom and pantry in that back corner where we would have lost half that bay of the garage.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
then
so
the second
uh,
floor is
sorry, I
identical.
might be missing something. Is that bathroom and pantry you're saying currently there? Is that work part of this open permit that already
No.
happened?
That's gone. Yeah. So that's the existing, he did existing drawings, current drawings. So that there was the existing drawings with the proposed addition of the garage and the front of the house. Cause that used to be a 4-season porch that we turned into living space, phase 1. So right now, if you go back to the new plans and it shows the kitchen layout, that's what it's currently
That's what
at
your
right
current
now.
first floor looks like now.
Correct. So we don't have a pantry or bathroom or that chimney that's sitting there.
Gotcha. Okay, that changes some.
And then on the new design addition, the second floor remains the exact same with the bedroom and bathroom, with the exception of having that little bit of breezeway walkway upstairs.
Okay. Essentially, all that first floor work that we're seeing on your new proposed plan has already happened.
Yeah.
It's already been inspected, signed off on. Is that correct, Jerry?
Say that again.
From what I'm understanding, it might be missing something. It sounds like all that first floor work shown on his current proposed plan, if I'm understanding him correctly, has already been complete. And is
That's in, I think it's in a construction phase.
I think it's all done.
All our,
Is it 100%, Sean?
yeah, yep.
Okay. Okay, I stand corrected.
okay. So really then to alter this plan, yeah. Yeah, I don't know how easy that would be now. I don't know if you could speak to that, Jerry. You know, it sounds like you kind of, let's say, put the cart before the horse, but he did a lot of this work under the assumption that this design would be approved.
We did it in like 2 phases. So the main house we renovated, we gutted from the attic to the basement. We renovated the section 1 first. All those designs were approved and that was signed off and everything like that. We had the variance for the addition, thinking, gung ho, we're gonna do it right now. But the phase 1 cost us a lot more money than we anticipated. So we held off on the addition. And now fast forward 3 years to now, just seeing other projects going around town, the different style farmhouses and stuff like that we wanted to try to go for and gain, a little bit more space. The cost of the septic was also holding us back. That was an issue, and that was in the way of the original proposed addition. So now we're able to do that, and where it's pushed back a little further, we want to extend, back more. So that's when we decided we wanted to do that breezeway and try to go as do it once and do it right. We don't want to have any second thoughts or, we should have done this, we should have done that, and just try to go for it all at once. So the proposed addition is phase 2 of the project.
Mhm.
Kathy, do you mind please showing the first floor as proposed, as currently proposed again?
Right one, okay.
Thank you.
I tried to squish them both on one page, so we make it a little bigger. first. Oh, look at the first one. Mm. Let me find it. Hold on.
Thank
That's
you.
what was emailed, Kathy.
Yeah.
So again, to the board. You're still talking about, so are we moving towards a discussion of trying to alter the plan?
I'm almost seeing now that there's say it almost unintentionally maybe created a hardship, Bob, if that makes sense, by doing this in phases, if you will. Though I do see that he could potentially just eliminate this breezeway, and maybe that solves everything. I think we're trying to.
Well, again, I think to that effort or to that point or that try, I don't know if that's really our purview. So in other words, you know, the question that has to be asked of the board is the currently submitted design too much of a reach on a variance, moving it out as it did? And if that's too much, is it, if it seems like a lot, is it offset by a sense of hardship as noted by the petitioner? And he's made a good case. There's a lot to be said for that. And maybe the most enabling of granting it is that, yeah, is that the hardship in an odd sort of way is, quite frankly, in my mind, being borne by his neighbor, because he's the one that it's coming all but onto his property, and he seemingly is okay with it. But, you know, do we take a macro view of it and say, well, look, you know, if there's a system failure, what do you do then? You know, I don't know. That would lie on him, and it's not going to be in his ability to turn and say, well, why'd you let, no offense to Mr. Howland, why'd you let them get away with this when they did, if there is something to be getting away with it? So so going back to this, you know, I think it's quite an ask, but at the same time, having been down Wright Street, having the assent of the neighbor, and, you know, the good fortune or just dumb luck that it might be that the space between the two buildings, not so much the property lines, but the two buildings, is always going to, at this time, just stay empty. The only thing that could possibly change it is if septic is someday in the future no longer needed in North Reading, in which case, you know, all bets are off anyway, and we're not there yet. So, you know, I can be persuaded either way, but as I think about it, it is quite an ask to go that close just to enable somebody to build the dream house that they want. But, you know, devil's advocate, the neighbor doesn't seem to mind, and I think it will do a lot for Wright Street. So does that make it beneficial to the town, whose interest in at the very base of all our decisions and actions we're representing? And to that point, you know, that's where the gray in this conversation lies for me. All the other things everybody's brought up are salient, but to me, it comes down to that. You know, does he have to go this far over? And if he does, is it that much of an ask given the situation that they have, which is the neighbor, that space between the two properties just is not going to imbalance the situation. And I think you even mentioned that there's a fence there. maybe existing, so, does the building itself basically be, replace what would otherwise be a fence separating the two properties? I don't know, I can't recall.
Yeah, so there is a fence. I have a fence line there now. And that will be the same line as this proposed addition.
Right, so effectively, yes, but there's a difference between a fence and a house or a building, right? But again, if you think of the thing that separates properties as you drive down streets all over the place, there's a fence. Oh, that's the thing that separates the two property. It creates this visual line. You're basically replacing the fence with the building itself. And the neighbor just doesn't seem to have any concern about it because, he sees it as, I'm looking out and seeing a fence. Instead, I'll be looking out and seeing the side of their garage and the second floor of their home. But then he says it's going to make the street look better. And ultimately, in his mind, he believes it's going to probably increase the value of his house, as everybody would generally hope when somebody builds the nicest house on the street. No offense to everybody else who lives on Wright Street. So this is the back and forth that we have to deal with. Again, but for the board, it's really, to me, simple, and I'd like to move this on because I think it's just a simple question. The relative hardship that would be faced by the petitioner in not being able to have this proposed project go forward with the grant of a variance that would basically take him seemingly inches from his neighbor's property line. Does it seem agreeable, or is it just too much? And I think that's the decision we each have to make. And again, the decisions by this board have to be unanimous. And if somebody has a concern or believes there is one, I think we owe it to in this case, Mr. O'Halloran, to just make sure that we ferret it out before we limit his opportunity, if that might be what occurs here.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
I'm usually pretty permissive. And I think financial hardship is a hardship and should be acknowledged and when deliberating here. And I feel for wanting to build a forever home, and there's certainly things in my own house I would like to work on and probably will have to come before the board one day. But I think this is just a step too far. I think the board already deliberated and gave one variance. And to me, I'm concerned about the precedent, and I'm concerned how close it is. I understand the setback from the house, but our code is written property line, not setback from the neighboring house. So to me, this is a little too far over what's reasonable.
And again, we haven't taken this to vote yet. So, Mr. Halloran, if I think, board member Michelle has made a pretty salient, a pretty clear indication of where she sits on this. So, you have the ability to continue this in the event that you want to somehow redraw or revisit the plan. I will stand. I want to see you succeed in redeveloping the property and completing what it is you're hoping to have. But you're the final determinant of what you're hoping to have working within, this town and its codes and bylaws. So, if you have a thought on maybe reconsidering your design, you might want to take advantage of that. And because I know we spent quite a bit of time on this tonight, but I think there's a lot of merit to what you're trying to achieve here. And I want to give you I think the board and the town want to give you a full and ample opportunity to achieve that, however that can be done.
mean, we definitely want to go with this design. I mean, I don't know how much more I could beat it in, you guys. I understand the whole property line and everything like that. But like I said, we got 50 feet between houses here, and there's other houses on the street that have had additions put up, and they're a lot closer, gaps between the houses. I don't know what they are off their property lines. I didn't look into any of that, but if you go up our street, there's been, quite a few additions and stuff like that here, and they don't have nearly as much space in between foundations that me and Mr. Snyder are gonna have. And where he, accepts that he's seen all these plans, I was working with him with it and everything like that, and having his wishes to do this and add value and character to our neighborhood. He was fully on board. Um, like I said, the other additions, they're so tight and close together where this isn't going to be the case. Um, we were approved for the 24 before, and I realize it's only, we got granted the 6 feet off the property line, and now we're looking for 6 inches. I know that's a reach, but we figured go for it because of the distance between it's going to be. And I guess with that being said, if this doesn't approve, what would you guys like to see? Obviously, we want to go, to our max distance as we can to allow more space for our family, our growing family. Um, Definitely need that breezeway and pantry area and bathroom. So that'll set us over the 24-foot mark, anyways, that we had previously. He might be able to shrink it down a little bit, but I don't want to lose all that space. Entertaining for every holiday here with having little kids. We can't be traveling too far. Um, and for families to have, one bathroom or no bathroom on the first floor and just have to keep going upstairs. It's crazy with the elderly going up and down the stairs. So that's why we want to definitely do a first floor bathroom. Um, but I don't know. Like to hear your
Yeah.
thoughts.
I think what Bob is trying to give the opportunity for is a withdrawal before a vote here. Since it was looking like I would be no voting. I just want to make that a little bit more clear procedurally. I mean, if you were able to redraw this and shrink your pantry and come back and it's 3 feet versus half a foot, I would be more amenable to that. Obviously, can't guarantee you who would be sitting here and reviewing it and their thoughts and feelings, but not even having a full foot off the property line is quite problematic to me. So if there was a way to shrink it, reconfigure it, have a smaller pantry, if the 2-car is crucial to you, that would provide me more comfort than half a foot, sorry.
You think we keep the 28 foot deep and we go over 28 or 29 feet? Would that be something acceptable to you? Just, I mean, to keep going back and forth with my architect obviously is going deep in my pockets. And I've spent so much money between this, all my designs. I've had him do it twice already, and now I just had to pay for the septic and designs and stuff like that. So, I don't want to keep sinking money into designs that aren't going to be approved where it's taken away now from my project. So that's, I think, where I'm getting at now. So if you tell me, hey, I'd rather see you a foot or 2 feet off the property line or 3 feet, I'll make the phone call tomorrow to him. But I don't want to have to come to the next meeting and I do the 28 by 28 or 28 by 29 and it doesn't get voted in. And then I have to go back and you know pay for another set of designs and everything like that. So I just want to see what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, understood the time and the cost. I'd say I can't guarantee how the board will view redesigns. It seemed the board previously voted 24 by 24 is acceptable. So I can't guarantee what the board will do, and I'm also just one member here, but shrinking it as much as possible would increase your chances of getting that variance approved.
All right. See what we can do.
Please, and so
Are you requesting a continuance?
So,
I
Mr.
think-
Halloran, are you requesting a continuance? And in that request, we could put it on for April or May. We meet once a month. That would afford you as much time to reconsider. I would also maybe, you're going to discuss alternatives with your if you are going to discuss alternatives with your design team. Maybe they might want to participate, because if they were to say, this is what we'd like to do. I mean, the hard and fast of this is that I think you've got the support of the board in terms of what you're trying to achieve here, but 6 inches is just too close, quite frankly. But that's not to say I do acknowledge your representation of the hardship. I'm more persuaded by the position of Mr. Snyder, given that statement of hardship, that he isn't as directly concerned. I'd really welcome his input in person if that would help me quite a bit, because I think that could only give the board some amount of certainty and confidence. And last point on this, of course, everybody's situation is their own, but this is a town, and I think Michelle made a good point, is that this board is acting in the best interest of the town. And with that in mind, we're not trying to frustrate you. We're just trying to maintain an overall approach to these matters that will be uniform for everybody. And I can't speak to how those other properties got developed on White Street, but obviously they did. And to your credit, you're trying to improve your situation, but indirectly will be improving Wright Street. So I'm all in favor of trying to make sure that you can get to a point of development that you'll be happy with. So if you are interested in a continuance, we can move the matter onto our April agenda. If you need more time from there, you can just let us know. But if you want to request a continuance, by all means, please do.
Yeah, I would like to request that continuance. We'll see if I could shrink it a little bit, and I'll see if I can get Scott Snyder on board for the next meeting potentially. I
Okay.
mean, we're not going to shrink it back to the 24, that's for sure. But if you guys want to see a foot or 2 or 3 off the property line, I'd be happy to accommodate you guys, as long as I get the accommodation from you guys.
Well, we're very open to this project. I think that the interest that was
Appreciate that.
shown in the conversation. So
Absolutely.
and
If you could put it towards the April meeting, I could have this all set up.
that's fine. With regard to our April calendar, I know we discussed it briefly. We're right now,
The
sorry,
18th.
April,
We said the 18th. Right?
yes, Thursday, April 18th. So Kathy, if you could make note to put him in queue.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. And
Thank you for answering all of our
Yeah.
questions and being patient.
Thank
with
you,
us.
guys. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Tom.
all your input and letting me join the next meeting to see if we can get this approved.
wonderful. Thank you again. And also it'll give you an opportunity, if you might, to make sure that the Board of Health has a clear understanding of your the limit, your acknowledgement that it's going to be a bedroom project as opposed to the 4-bedroom that was raised by the community planning. And so there's some formal acknowledgement for the record. That's always helpful. Thank you.
Will do.
Okay, thank you,
All
Mr.
right, thank you,
Osborne.
guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh, And returning to our agenda for the evening, as I flip through the many pages on the right.
I see if I can find it for you.
I feel I have it. To Fieldcrest Terrace, appeal of the building commissioner by the applicant Joseph Mastoni, or is it Mastone?
Stone.
Mastone? Is Mr. Mastone with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Regarding the hearing notice, a virtual public hearing will be held on Thursday, March 28th on the petition of Joseph Mastone, 2 Fieldcrest Terrace, North Reading, Mass map 8, parcel 107, or an appeal of the decision of the building commissioner for the denial of rehabilitating the second dwelling on the property. Thank you for joining us tonight, Mr. Mastone. Given that you're under appeal of a finding of the building commissioner, if if Jerry O'Neill would please enter the finding of the denial for the record, if you have it.
Are you talking to me or to Jerry?
Jerry, what went out from building that resulted in the denial of the rehabilitation of the second dwelling on the noted property?
I met with Mr. Mastoni. Is it Mastone or Mastoni?
It's Mustone, but it can go
Yes.
either way.
Yeah, Mastone. I met with Mr. Mastone in January. Then we met again. And he basically was he was adamant that the fact that he thought that he had 2 single families on that property. And I told him that in accordance to looking at the records, and well, I told him I would look into the records. After looking into the records, I saw that there was a determination from the zoning board of appeals prior, and the zoning board of appeals saw that as being a single family and a barn. And the tax assessor was also taxing the property as a single family. And that's what I basically went on, because it's all legal transactions that happen. Thank you.
And so as a result of that finding, what it prevented the rehabilitation of the property. What specifically was that rehabilitation?
Didn't prevent the rehabilitation. He
Okay,
basically was looking to have 2 single families on this property.
okay, I get it. Okay. So the matter before the board is, Mr. Mastone, the basis of your appeal, if you might, for the record?
It's just the interpretation of the bylaws. You know, a little history of the property. My grandfather bought that property back in the 60s, and there were 3 cottages there called the Blue Jays, and they were all dwellings. And my father bought the property for my grandfather later in the 60s and lived in one unit for almost 60 years. Always rented one of the units in the very beginning, eventually selling it to Dean Rayo, who still resides there. And the other one, he just continuously tried to work on it over the years. And what he used to tell me was that that was going to be an income for his retirement. But in his 60s, he had a heart operation and wasn't able to do the work. But you know, my when I first met with Mr. Knoll, he had emailed me a page of the bylaws that are talking about abandonment. And because there was no activity for a period of 2 years, that it was deemed, I'll read it quickly. It says non-conforming uses of structures which have not been used for a period of 2 years or more, which have been abandoned, shall thereafter be subject to all the provisions of this zoning bylaw. Now, in that statement, it says all the provisions of the zoning bylaws. They're under non-conforming use because this property, according to the tax records, was built in 1925. And it was a dwelling, it was taxed as a dwelling. And so for a non-conforming use, it states shall be defined as a use of a structure, building, or a lot that does not conform to a use regulation prescribed by the zoning bylaw for the district in which it is located, but which was in existence at the time the use regulation became effective and was lawful at the time it was established. And that clause is stated a few different times in the meaning that the bylaws came in 1977, and these properties were built prior to that and being used as dwellings. So I'm looking to get a different definition. I don't agree with Mr. Knoll, but I'm reading the wordage in the zoning bylaws, and I feel the father had he eventually, well, Mr. Knoll had mentioned about, he had my father in the 80s, he sold one of the units to Dean Rayo that Dean had been renting there for numerous years. And at that time, he subdivided the property and put the third unit and separated. The barn or the shed, whatever it's labeled, I think that my father didn't state that that's what it was. I think whoever drew up the plans for my father just kind of wrote that in there. But to me, you can be labeled whatever you want, but what was that property? What was that building prior to the bylaws coming in? And my father had a lawyer that helped with the subdivision of the property and was a good friend for many years, Bill Diamond out of Andover. And it was Bill Diamond that had told my father that building is grandfathered in under the bylaws. So that pretty much is what I'm trying, my statement. And I'm just trying to get some sort of ruling from the board and get some determination of the wordage, because it is contradictory. So that's it.
Did we lose him? I'm sorry.
I think he's all done.
Okay.
And let me say this, I never expected a decision tonight. I've been watching, the other petitioners. So, I don't know if, I doubt you people have the bylaws memorized. So if you need more time to read things over, I'm okay with that.
Well, thanks. It's an interesting question because, the documentations that was submitted with regard to this, make a particular note of a decision by the Board of Appeals, dated, from a hearing in
I would like to say
January
one more
28th of
thing.
1987. Sure.
I name of the building inspector, but Jerry, when you came on board, but my father was still alive. I moved back there a couple years ago to take care of my father and to help keep him out of a nursing home. He passed away almost 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago. But while he was still alive, I went to the building inspector's office and just asked about that. And the previous building inspector, he interpreted as he told me that I had to keep the same footprint, but I could rebuild on that, a dwelling on that building. And now after my father passed away, Mr. Knowles, the new building inspector, and he's got a different view of how the bylaws read. And I don't agree with that, and that's what I'm trying to get for a ruling here.
So for practical purposes, as laid out on the plan that was submitted showing, in this case, dwelling on lot 1 with a barn, and then on lot 2, another dwelling. So I've been down Fieldcrest. The dwelling on lot 2, that's not an issue here, correct? I just want that to be on the record. We're talking about, are you talking specifically about the 2 structures on, in this case, lot 1 referencing the plan of land in North Reading dated, in this case, December 16th, 1986?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And
I don't know who made this drawing, but whoever put barn down, it could say anything really, but it wasn't. It originally was a dwelling.
okay. And just for my own curiosity or just clarification. So, Inspector Jerry, is the issue relevant to maintaining the footprint in what is basically, and for lack of, the 2 structures? One's a dwelling, one barn as it's described, whether it is or it isn't. Those are the 2 built structures on this lot, right? And what was your understanding of that? They couldn't be rehabilitated, or
The issue is, this is a legal document. He subdivided this lot. He has lot 2 and lot 1. Lot 1 says a 1 dwelling, and then it shows a barn. It doesn't show a home. It doesn't show a dwelling. It shows a barn. There's only 1 electrical service going to that particular dwelling. And when I spoke with the assessor, I asked her how this was being taxed. She told me as a single family. I asked her if that was ever in her file showing as a second single family on that particular lot. She said no, it's always been a single family. So that's what I base that on. So I'm basing it on legal precedents, not just hearsay.
okay.
What I would like to say about that is that that plan is dated 86, and again, I'm going back to 77, and that I went to the assessor's office to ask for tax records when the last time that building was taxed as a dwelling, and I know it was a dwelling because when I was taking care of my father, this was in the middle of COVID, so I was around there a lot, and a neighbor woman came up to me and told me that when she was a little girl, the owner of that property, her mother and her brother and herself had nowhere to live, and the owner of that property let them live in that house for a while. I can find this woman. I didn't find her for tonight, but You know, I went to the assessor's office and I looked, I requested tax information going back, and they told me that they wouldn't be able to do that, or I'd have to pay to have them do that, or, so all I can say is that the dwelling, the building is stated in the tax records as being built in 1925. And these were, again, these were 3 cottages. These were 3 dwellings, and, you know, in the 60s. So that was prior to 1977 when the bylaws came into effect.
So for clarification, based upon the drawing, the issue, the structure at issue is what has been noted on the plan as being quote unquote the barn. Jerry saying that it's not a dwelling. The only dwelling in lot one is what is on the
Correct.
same plan, a dwelling. While Mr. Mastone is saying that the other one is a dwelling, and the only reason it is described as a barn is because whoever drew this plan up labeled it as such, but it was never, to your knowledge, anything other. It was actually a dwelling, and the town has treated it as the town has treated it, but that's the town's either mistake and or choice. And your position is that it's a mischaracterization of that structure. Am I correct?
Is that to me or to,
To you,
Mr.
to you, Mr. Mastone, because
Well, if you look under, I mean, I have the bylaws in front of me that are pertinent to this. And 200-9 intent and interpretation definitions under non-conforming use, it states shall be defined as a use of a structure, building, or lot that does not conform to a use regulation prescribed by the zoning bylaw for the district in which it is located, but which was in an existence at the time the use regulation became effective and was lawful at that time it was established. So this was a dwelling. And so under that part of the bylaw, you know, it, to me, that erases, that building should be grandfathered in. Going by the town's records, it's, you know, it was built in 1925. So that's well before the issuance of the bylaws in 77.
Is there anybody else with regard to Mr. Mastone's position joining
Yes.
during the meeting tonight?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, my name is
You-
Amy Sonia. I live at 24 Field Crest Terrace. I grew up in this house. I've lived in this home for 45 years. Prior to me living here, my grandparents actually rented the house that Dean and Karen Rayo own from Mr. Chris Mastone. And I will say, Chris Mastone was an amazing neighbor and a great person. I can tell you times when I'd get off the school bus and he would be working in his garden, and he always went out of his way to speak to us as his neighborhood children. But as far back as I can remember, even when my grandparents rented the home that Dean and Karen Rayo live in and own, that shed, as the assessor has it labeled on the property record card, was never occupied by anybody. In fact, I do not believe there was ever plumbing in that home. I can tell you stories of being a child playing hide and seek and cops and robbers, that when me and the neighborhood children would actually hide under that shed and Chris would come out and get us to scatter away because he was concerned we were going to get hurt because it was not a safe structure. Yes, Mr. Mustone, Chris Mustone, did go in there and redo the floor one time. But there's not even a concrete foundation under that structure, that shed, as the assessor has it assessed as. I do remember when Chris subdivided the lot, and because after my grandparents moved out, I do not remember if anybody lived there between my grandparents and Dean. But I do remember him subdividing the lot and selling it to Dean. But I believe that was in the late 80s, maybe like 1987. My other concern would be if they ever were to ask to put 2 homes on that lot. There's conservation and wetlands behind them. You need to be 25 feet from the wetlands to put a septic tank or septic system in. And there is no possible way that they could do that for 2 houses. I would actually have concerns that they could do that for 1 house. You drive by that house right now. Again, it's a great lot. It's a corner lot, but it is so wet that trees in the yard are uprooting. Mr. Mustone's garden used to flood out when we had floods in this neighborhood. I mean, I go back to when we would canoe down Burroughs Road because the road had to close because it flooded so bad. There is no possible way that they could put 2 homes on that lot. And I beg to differ, Mr. Mustone, that that house was ever, or that shed was ever occupied as a home. And again, and I'm going back to the 70s. So who you knew that, or who came up to you and said that their family lived in it, I would love to know that, because like I said, I've lived here so long that I probably knew who they are, and I would love to talk to them and ask them that factually. But again, I don't think there's ever been plumbing in that home. Again, there's no foundation under it. I've been under that shed with my siblings and with my neighborhood friends. In fact, some of them may be on the call right now, I don't know. But I have major concerns if you even consider allowing 2 houses to go on that lot. What would happen to the water that is in that yard right now? The people across the road on Burroughs would get flooded out. Mr. and Mrs. Rayo would possibly get flooded out. I just don't understand why it would even be considered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anybody else with joining us tonight? Kathy, if you want to either reduce the size of the illustration, and we can kind of take roll of the gathered names and interest. I know not to circumvent the general public. David Rudloff from community planning. I know that there was a notation of the CPC support. If you give me a moment. Dated, excuse me, March 27th, Two Field Crest Terrace ZBA application. The Community Planning Commission supports the decision of the building inspector. Do you want to elaborate on that, or is there anything that should that just speak for itself?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think, to be honest, it was more our historian, Warren Pierce, is familiar with the property, and he indicated that it's always been, a shed, or it's not a dwelling. So that's about the extent of our take on it. And then we looked at the documents, and that's where we settled on agreeing with Mr. Noel.
Okay.
But I don't know all the legal the legalese, if you will, that's being kind of brought forth right now. Just like you, I think I would have to get a little bit more educated on it.
Well, from what I gather, it's a question of pre-existing structures, and I'm just going to describe it as that, predating the zoning bylaws, And inherently, there's always this belief that everything that preceded is grandfathered in as the term is used and carries forward. I can't tell you if that has ever been reduced to anything other than commonly held belief and understanding, or if it's actually documented or referenced therein. I've made note of that in some readings. But in this case, I think the question that is being raised, the objection to the denial that is being raised by Mr. Mastone is that it's a dwelling and grandfathered in, and as such should be characterized as such. And if it is, then his position is that lot one in its entirety is a lot that can support two dwellings. And now the question, that's just as I'm just want to be sure that that's what everybody is discussing here. And now the question as to what defines a dwelling or what is just otherwise quote unquote a shed or a barn, that is where a decision might lie. Perhaps it could be that it could be something more, but that to me seems to be the question at hand.
Mr. Chairman, the one thing I'd comment on is, I think what Mr. Noel pointed out is that, was that an A&R, Jerry? That plan that was from the 80s, I think it was, that you were showing, the surveyed one that Kathy had up there for a while?
Yes, that would have been.
Because
So
as
that
Jerry
was-
said,
so that-
the surveyor is the one who labeled all that when the applicant was asking, I don't know who did it. I mean, it's the names right on the top. That's who labeled that document, and they're licensed by the state, so that's their stamp. You know, that's who created that document. But I think once you then create new lots and identify the buildings, I mean, you're really starting day zero there. You're not. It's not going back to pre-bylaw at that point. And in my opinion, I mean, that's how we would approach stuff, at least on planning, on site plan reviews and things like that. You know, it really starts with that A&R again, or restarts. And the subdivision.
My only input on that is I'm doing this as the representative for my father's estate, but also in my father's memory. You know, as you heard the stories about him, he's a very quiet man, and he would fairly often say to me, you know, bring up about the you know, the advice that he got from his lawyer and things like that. So I'm a big part of this I'm doing for the memory of my father also. Because I mean, I have to try, and you know, whatever you decide. To me, if my father didn't see that they labeled that a barn, and he doesn't have the you know, the sophistication to realize that it was being changed, to me, it still doesn't change anything that of what it was prior to the bylaws coming into effect. So
I might
I
ask
don't
Mr.
necessarily agree with
Sure.
with
I
your
might ask Mr.
assessment.
Stone, what is it that you're looking to do with this property?
Yes. Mr. Rayo is interested in purchasing it. So right now, that's all I'm looking at doing. You know, I never thought it was going to, you know, after that initial conversation that I had with the past building inspector, I was kind of blindsided. I never expected all this. And to me, that's the problem, is that the way that the bylaws are stated, it can be interpreted in numerous ways. And in this particular situation, you know, I don't feel I'm wrong. So, you know, every person I talked to when I was going through this whole process, everybody with the town has been wonderful. They also not everybody, but most of them said, oh, you're an attorney. And, you know, I didn't feel that we had an attorney. And you know, to just read the bylaws and to interpret them the way that they're written, you know, I don't think you need a law degree to do that.
But ultimately, what is, you're just trying to sell it as a single lot.
Yes, I'm not looking to subdivide. You know, I think my father should have did that back when he was doing everything with Dean and straighten that whole process out. But I think he was just trying to, Dean was a renter. And actually, when he first sold the house, he held the mortgage on the property. And when mortgage rates started going down, he advised Dean to go find a better mortgage. He did that.
Okay,
My
that's-
father wasn't aware of
I understand. I'm
consequences.
not trying to, I understand, but what I'm trying to, so what brought about this entire involvement with the building is, have you been told by the prospective buyer that you need to resolve this issue? For whatever.
No, because I
or is it-
really haven't gone into any type of negotiations with anybody yet.
Okay,
I'm doing this because my father told me to do it.
okay, that's fine. Again, I ask because it's pragmatic and practical, because that's ultimately what the board is dealing with. I didn't mean to interrupt the people that are participating. If there's anybody else within that is still on this this meeting that might want to add something regarding the interpretation of whether that second structure is a
Hi there.
dwelling. Yes.
I live at 109 Burroughs Road. I actually grew up in the neighborhood as well. And I live directly across the street. I look at that barn every day, and I have for almost 40 years. Honestly, I actually grew up on 20 Fieldcrest Terrace. And when I got married and had my own family, I didn't move far. But that's always been a barn. It's never been anything more than that. I mean, it's never been occupied from anything I've seen. And like I said, I've lived in this neighborhood for almost 40 years. And it's, I really, if you're trying to make it so you can have two houses on that property, I really don't think that is an option. It's just nothing but wetlands in the back. I mean, when we have serious water, it floods, like Amy said, it floods all the way up. I mean, the trees are uprooted in the back. And honestly, I mean, I've lived here almost 40 years, like I said, and I didn't even know Mr. Mastone had a son. I've never seen him. Even though I know he's been saying he's been kind of occupying the property here and there. I've seen his car come and go a little bit here and there. I know that's like not important, but I just don't think if he's trying to make it so you can have two separate dwellings, that's just not an option. So.
Thank you. So we've heard from two members of the community, both of whom noted that they've never seen anybody residing in the second dwelling. Is there anybody else who might be able to counter? Yes.
Yes, could I say something?
Please.
Pat Fillmore, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. And I've lived in that area for many, many years. When my folks first moved into town, they rented on Brooksdale. And then later on, they rented Dean Rayo's house from Chris Mustone. And that white barn, to my knowledge, I mean, we're talking back in the 60s, I don't ever recall, because we used to go down and visit Mrs. Myers down at the end of the street. There was never anybody, living in that house. Maybe he let somebody pack a tent or a sleeping bag or something when they were, as he said, his father let them live there. Maybe he let them pack a sleeping bag and stay there, but I don't ever remember there being any electric hooked up there. Years ago, they used to have wells pumping on Fieldcrest Terrace, but that was only 2 houses, I think. Um, Nobody's ever lived there from as far back as I can remember, which, I mean, I was a little young in 54 to remember that stuff, but in the 60s, I don't remember anybody living there. And again, as it was said earlier, that property floods. You could take a boat in Chris's backyard when the water was, when it rained and that, and all his tomato plants and everything, never grew because there was so much water. And to put 2 buildings there with 2 septics just can't be done.
Okay. Thank you for that, that
Can I
information.
jump in there for, when my father bought the property from my grandfather, neither one of those houses had anybody living in them. My father had to redo the one that he lived in. And so there was, I don't know how long the one that's marked as a dwelling on the plot plan that you looked at before. My father went in there and redid that whole property, and had always made plans of redoing the other one also. So I'm respectfully, I'm trying to understand what these other people are saying, but it still doesn't change the way that the law states, whether it's near the wetlands or, if it was in existence at the time of the bylaws coming in. So,
Okay, so respectfully, to me, and I'm not trying to curtail the public hearing on this matter, but there are matters in front of this that seem to go to definitions and whatever the properties were used and at the time that the town transitioned into bylaws, there were things that came forward, definitions of structures, et cetera. What did, what wasn't, what may have. And I think that for the sake of not brevity as much as practicality, it might be prudent for this board to take this matter and submit it to town council or speak directly with the other departments, because I can't believe that this is the only property that could possibly have seen this. And furthermore, even though we are working within the town bylaws for purposes of zoning, there might be more controlling language on a statewide basis that might better define how these matters should be or could be resolved.
excuse me, that was stated by my father, by his attorney at the time, that he always quoted a state law versus the town bylaws.
Well, again, it's perhaps that's the case, and in which case I myself would need to know which trumps what, and the best person or the best department to defer that to for clear understanding is town council.
I have one more question as well. I believe it's in the RB district, and the minimum lot requirement is 20,000 square feet. I believe this lot with the shed, people call it a barn, I'm sorry, I call it a shed, because like I said, I was under it. But I believe it's only like 16,600 feet. It's not even 20,000 square feet. So if you think about it now, you couldn't even, it's not even a conforming lot to build a single family home. But yes, that would be grandfathered in as a single family home on that property. But I don't even think it would be possible to split it and put 2 homes on it, because you're not even conforming with a 20,000 square foot lot.
And to that end,
And
that purpose and end, this is where it comes down to is, again, I think the practical point I'm trying to put before not only the board, but also the gathered at this meeting is that those restrictions, when we transitioned, I'm assuming, and please, if forgive me for making an assumption perhaps, but a practical one. When the town adopted and passed bylaws that basically were put in place for future development, but recognized the existing developments, those existing structures, lines, properties, they may not have just simply been said to be, sure, we'll take them as they are. There might be restrictions that, in this case, the petitioner may not be aware of, that being Mr. Mastone, or his father, or his counsel, or even the building inspector at the time that he's had these conversations. We're having to deal with this today at this time, and while having been down in that area and seen the size of the lot and taken the neighbors' points tonight as being representative of what happens on a day-to-day basis there, my last point on this is that I think for a practical purpose, there needs to be more of a consideration of this by, in this case, town council, as well as possibly our own, maybe the board's own research and consideration of bylaws and the practicality of what falls under them, as well as that which existed before they were enacted. I'd welcome the input from Michelle or Brendan on that, because I think they might be hearing what I'm hearing, but I'm not going to assume that I'm hearing everything as well.
Can I just make one more point as well? You have a
Please, sure.
you have a certified plot plan here. In fact, I have a copy of it because I did go in and request a copy of it. It's dated 1986. That's a certified plot plan. Filed probably with the Registry of Deeds when the lot was split in 1986. And it clearly states that there's a dwelling and a barn. So doesn't a certified plot plan right there tell us that that's not a two-dwelling lot? It's certified and it's dated and stamped by an attorney. And like I said, most likely filed with the Registry of Deeds, which we can all go on the Registry of Deeds online and see if that's there. But right there tells us that Mr. Mustone, Chris Mustone, yes, was he a quiet man? But he was not a dummy. He was a very smart man. I knew him my whole life, pretty much. So I don't think he was ignorant to the fact that he didn't know that that was certified the way it was.
Well, again, that ultimately it sounds that is the position taken by, in this case, Mr. Mastone, the petitioner, that it's not to be characterized as something other than, it should be characterized as a dwelling, and that's at issue. And your point is well made. What legal significance, weight, and or finality might be attributable to, in this case, a plot plan that could be a resolution of this. It might be something just as easy or simple, that being might have been minimum requirements that were needed in place at the time that the bylaws were adopted. And I think I can maybe make a representation on behalf of Jerry that not every property in town was looked at. It's meant as an overlay, and this was just, but this falls under it. And so it was carried forward as being something other than a dwelling, or maybe it is. I believe, but for practical purposes, my position at this time during tonight's hearing is that we need to have some input from town council, because there might be a way to resolve that might be applied here that could more directly resolve this. And again,
Hey, could I jump in? This is John Staccato from 11 Fieldcrest.
please.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious if you're going to go to town council and ask some questions. I'd be curious if when the lot was subdivided, if that didn't push a reset to whatever was grandfathered in, if it didn't set a new kind of, flatline the date there.
That's
And also, what constitutes minimum requirements for a dwelling? If there's no plumbing, electrical, if there's no foundation, is there a definition to what what constitutes a dwelling and what doesn't constitute a dwelling?
They're both excellent points. The first one is one that I'd already ruminating in my mind as well. Any input? I mean, I welcome the input from everybody as to their understanding of the property and their lifetime of having seen it. Those representations seem to be at odds with the petitioner, so be it. But I'm looking more towards the practical here, and I would welcome both Brenda and Michelle to give their thoughts on what the board should be trying to do at this time for the matter to most practically and as best we can correctly resolve it.
Yeah, I guess back to your original point, if this is in, I don't want to, disparage or in any way undermine the legacy of your father, but if this isn't trying to be accomplished to execute a next step or a plan, I just want to understand the purpose of going through the exercise and what the end goal is. I know Bob had asked as well, but if this is just to, confirm at some point in theory this was acknowledged as a house, or if the town does acknowledge that this is a house, are you going to take further action with that information?
My whole purpose coming tonight was a firmer definition and interpretation of the bylaws. I had the same thoughts, Bob, that you did about. I never thought that this would be like groundbreaking news about. There had to be another property in Reading that had gone through this process. But all I'm trying to do tonight is to get a more definitive interpretation of the bylaws and how it stands to that. And to explain that to, my neighbors, I would have never known all this, right? He is the one that for years had told me to pursue this. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay, and if we say this was a house, I'm not saying that's where this is going, but if we say, you're right, you got us, what's the next step there? If this was a house acknowledged in the.
Yeah, it was a house, so it should be able to be built as a single family house.
Okay, yep, that's what I was just trying to confirm, that there's an end goal here.
Yep, that's
okay.
all. It's nothing, I'm not looking for anything crazy, just a more definitive, Jerry Knoll was always super nice to me, and but we didn't agree on that, so I had to go to a referee, and that's you folks.
Okay, sure, hear that. And then Bob, to answer your question, I mean, I was listening but also multitasking. That A&R plan was recorded. I think we could chase this on the registry. I think we would be able to find more instances as this property is described in more detail, and I think we should spend the time to find that additional information. Whether we do that or town council does that, but I think the land records would have a lot of valuable information.
Brendan.
I tend to agree. I mean, I was also kind of multitasking, doing some, title searches on the registry of deeds, pulling up some of my own information here, mass law. Dwelling is any building that contains one or two dwelling units used, intended, or designed to be built, used, rented, leased, let, or hired out to be occupied, or that are occupied for living purposes. And then I did see some more information that state law may or may not trump local law, where that local law can't make or pass laws that supersede or conflict with state laws. So say let's do a little more digging here and see what we can find before we make our final ruling decision on the matter.
So, and thank you, Brendan. So to me, as just not acting as chair, but as just a board member itself, my recommendation is that the board take what was noted at the meeting tonight and try to do just what, interestingly, both the petitioner and the town wants, which is a clearer definition of the best way to define this property, with the understanding that its construction and was predated the bylaws, and where does that place it? And how this and other properties might have been transitioned under them. And so that, sure, maybe there were wild cards, so to speak, or situations that were outside, but at the same time, the bylaws, which, as much as people are often probably bothered by the attempt to enforce them, I take the position that that's for the benefit of everybody, for any number of reasons. So, but again, fairness is due to an ode to everybody, in both the owners of, in this case, 1-2 Fieldcrest Terrace, and the neighbors and the adjoining street. So I'd like to take this, reach out to town council, and go from there. And Kathy, maybe you could, and if the board is in support of that, I would welcome their assent or thoughts on the best approach to do it.
I would support that, Bob. I found something else interesting, and it may just make this a moot point. If it is discovered that pre-existing structure is supported, its use wasn't a barn, was a house, even though there's no power or electricity foundation there, technically, and maybe Jerry knows this, or we might need to get some more information, could they actually physically put a house there, or does its location and maybe lack of septic or inability to put what is required to actual place a habitable structure there make that impossible, and then this just becomes irrelevant?
I think we'd have to take it one step at a time. I think we have to first make the determination before then seeing what's theoretically possible.
Well, again, the other point on this is that technically, 2 dwellings exist on a single lot. For whatever reason, they put them closest to, in this case, Burrows Road, but does that mean that I think the petition would have you believe that maybe perhaps that it doesn't matter. I can, no matter where I put them or how I put them, I can tear them down and put two dwellings on that lot. And that seems to be ultimately what anybody would want to do with this lot, because having seen the structures as they exist now, they're not obviously, they can't sustain residence or use as we might want them to, but at the same time, the town has always treated it as noted by the building inspector's decision as a single dwelling lot. And that's ultimately the question. So yeah, that structure that is shown on this plan as being a barn, or you want to refer to it as a shed, or even if you want to refer to it as a dwelling, the question is that's not practical now. So it's a good idea, Brun, but I don't think that's what the end game here is. I think the end game is to see if if two dwellings could be built on this single lot, and what would help, if it were me, and if I could, I'd split it in half, put one on each half, and suddenly I've got two but I can't speak to what somebody else would try to do with it, but that might be what I'm trying to do with it. Well, now we're talking a totally different thing, but we have to remember that right now, according to the town of North Reading, you can only rehabilitate or build a single dwelling there. And the petitioner takes a different position. It's that simple. And I like simple, and unless I'm missing something, I'll be surprised. But I think council, as well as, to Brendan's point, does state law trump? Does state law guide? Does state law step aside? I raised the thought, this couldn't be the first time this has happened in town. What happened with those other properties? As one of the members of the community noted earlier, when the property was subdivided, did that change its characterization? Because did that subdivision come in after the bylaws were passed, and therefore the grandfathering no longer applied? I mean, these are questions that, are all worth investigating. And I think that's where our time should be better spent. And with those understandings determined one way or the other, it'll give the board greater confidence in deciding whether or not that this property is one that's either a single or a two dwelling property as defined under the town bylaws for going forward. And if anybody has any thoughts or considerations beyond that, please. Otherwise, I think I'd like to have somebody consider bringing a motion to continue the matter for further investigation resolution towards ultimate resolution.
I'd like to jump in here. A local resident, Philip Lasowski, if that's okay.
Please.
Only need a few seconds here. I'm a resident of 2 Old Andover Road, so I'm just across the street diagonally from the property. I have not lived here for that long, maybe a couple of years, so I can't comment to usage of the residence or of the building, rather. But the only question that I would like to pose, if questions are going to be brought to other folks, maybe the town council and things like that, is the question of taxes. So if the property has been used as though it were multiple residences, the question that I have would be, what does that mean for taxes paid and back taxes and things like that? I'm certainly not looking to, sandbag any, local property owners and things like that. But that is a question, being a resident of the town, what is owed if that is the case? So just putting that out there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Good catch. I mean, that's an interesting thought. If it's always been taxed as a single dwelling and there's always been 2 dwellings on it, what's the retroactive effect of that? I mean, these are things that I always like to believe that these wheels have been rolled out before. If not here, then it's someplace else, and there's guidance to be found someplace else. So, but again, and just because there's two buildings, does that mean that they're both livable buildings? So maybe it's always been taxed correctly. It kind of is an interesting question. And these are questions that I know I don't have enough information or education in the immediate or available to me to answer, but they're the ones that I would want answered. And so I think it might be in the best interest of everybody, and I do mean everybody, including the petitioner, the neighbors, and inherently the town itself, to try to get a better pursuit of understanding, recognition of existing situations or past. And I think that information can only help us make a final decision on this within the board's purview. So, any objection by the board? Michelle,
No
Brendan.
objection.
No objection.
All right, and again, Kathy, given your understanding of how the inner machinations of the town hall is, what's your sense on how much time we would have to afford at least town council in trying to get this started, if you would?
I really have no idea. I think we'd have to go through the town administrator to see if we could go to town council, and then what it would take for them to come to some conclusion. Probably wouldn't be for the next meeting.
Okay.
If I could respond on that, it usually takes me anywhere from 3 to sometimes 7 weeks to get an answer from town council.
Who foots the bill for town council? Us as taxpayers or the petitioner?
Well, the town council likes Jerry, so if he's getting 7 weeks, then we're in good standing. What I'd like to do is put this matter over for just status for our April meeting. There won't be any formal hearing at that time, but at that time we will be able to update the parties as well as the community as to where we are in terms of the timeline on this presentation to town administrators and or council. And with that information back from them, hopefully we'll be able to put it on for another hearing date, at which time we'll have that information to provide to each of you and to everybody, and at the same time facilitate a resolution as it still might lie with this board. So
Again, can I just ask, when it goes to town council, if the petitioner is requesting this information, is he paying for town council or am I paying for town council as a taxpayer?
well, in the purview of the role, the job of town council, the matter, it's of interest to the town. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I can speak to this is Dave Rudloff. If you look in the town's town's budget every year, we allocate anywhere about $130,000, $135,000 a year for town council, and usually comes in under that, the actual, but that is for these kind of questions. So all of us here on this meeting, all do pay into that, and it is for varied types of requests from the different boards and things like that. CPC, we do the same, but it's all the same, comes out of all the same legal counsel fund.
and again, the status, by putting this over for status through our April meeting, we'll have a better idea of what's going on. And, maybe at that point, and thank you, David, for that. Maybe at that point, they'll say, look, this is incumbent upon the petitioner to provide us with, because they might just have a simple finding, in which case he'd have every right to appeal. So I'm not going to, I don't think it's appropriate to go there at this time. I just think it's best to, for practicality purposes, to afford us an opportunity to gather more information and background. I have every hope that the resolution of these matters have been laid out in similar, if not like situations in the past, and it might be that simple. But having heard everybody's positions tonight, as well as those of the petitioner and the building inspector, I think we have a pretty clear idea of what needs to be done with this. And again, I think it would benefit everybody to have that kind of definition and finding as we further consider what needs to be done and should be done with this property.
Bob, can I assign a little homework in the meantime?
Please.
So I think we're going to be seeking a technical legal interpretation from town council, but I think there's also some factual information missing. I think we heard from a lot of testimony today as to their recollection of how the property was used. Ask, since it seems like there's a lot of vested parties here, besides some oral testimony, if anyone's able to find photos or do their own research through the Town Historic Society. But when we gather again, I think we'll get the technical legal interpretation, but we'd be helpful if anyone has documents to show how it was used historically. Not that I don't take everyone's word for it, but memories change and documents would be helpful.
Good idea. So again, this can be put forward to the town. Just note the regarding in this case, Fieldcrest Terrace, excuse me. Thank you. So with that, do we have to make a formal motion to continue, or is it just as an understanding?
We have to continue to a certain date.
Okay. I'd like to move that the matter regarding 2 Fieldcrest Terrace be continued for status only to April 18th, at which time we will revisit it for purposes of further hearing, calendaring of further hearing. How's that? So in other words, we go to the 19th, the 18th of April. At that time, we see where we are with regard to inquiries made to town council and or other parties. And at that time, we decide if it could be heard again at hearing in May. And if longer time is needed, then again, we only meet monthly, so it's not any more practical than putting it forward, but we can only deal with this month to month. So again, Kathy, again, for the board, I would just like to move that we continue it for status only. Again, April 18th at our next scheduled meeting.
Sure. Seconded, Michelle Bodian.
Thank you, Michelle. All for the board, all in favor of continuing for status only to April 18th.
Michelle Bodian, aye.
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Brain, aye. Thank you all. And again, once the so again, there's no need to plan to join the meeting on April 18th. If a date is better reached for formal hearing and to announce or state findings on the record, it would then occur at that meeting, or if it gets continued again and kicked over, if as the case might be, that'll be on the record as well. So for all concerned parties, just keep an eye on postings to the transcript as well as inquiries to town, but nothing, no inquiry of any value will be known until again after April 18th, because we won't know where we stand on replies to our inquiries or investigation any sooner than that. For
Can I
purposes of
just,
the record.
can I just state too, just so that everybody on the meeting knows, I don't believe that when a meeting is continued, that abutters get notified again. So we all do need to make sure we're paying attention, because there will be no notification sent to the abutters within 300 feet, I believe.
That's right, because that was the purpose of the hearing tonight. You were all everybody was put on notice and have been advised
Bob,
of the status of this. Yes, Kathy.
I can note it on the agenda if it's going to be continued. We'd have to have a date, but that way people don't have to come to the next meeting if it's continued.
Right, so we'll know, we'll probably, I mean, wherever it sits on next month's agenda, we'll put it on the record, and if we've got answers from town and or, excuse me, council or assessors or whomever, we will effectively say that we've gotten all the information that we requested, and that we're now going to put it on for whatever date, and that would hopefully be May. But we might not have an answer from town council or any other respective party in full by the April 18th meeting, at which time we would just say we're going to continue the matter until the May meeting for status. And status is only to update everybody as to where we stand in terms of inquiry and investigation. And that is what the purpose of the meeting, the agenda item next month will be, just to alert everybody as to when we will resume hearing, as opposed to, as is the case for next month's status. So that clarification is to be made. And thank you for noting that the importance of keeping track of it. I have on your as members of the community, as it were. So closes that matter, and thank you all for joining us regarding Fieldcrest this evening. Remaining matters on our agenda for tonight.
Meeting minutes.
Meeting minutes from last month. If anybody has had a chance to review them, I know I glanced over them. They seem to be pretty comprehensive. If anybody has any thoughts or comments or otherwise, I'd welcome a motion regarding the meeting minutes.
Yeah, they looked good to me. So I move to approve the minutes for March 7th, 2024 as drafted.
Could I get a
I second the motion.
Thank you, Brendan. That being the case, all in favor of adopting the minutes from our meeting of March, please.
Michelle Bodie and I.
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Breen, aye. Thank you. Any new business that the board should note or make note of? Kathy, any update or follow through with regard to filling the open associate member seats?
No, I saw they put an ad in the paper for a bunch of board and committee positions. So hopefully we'll hear something. Did anybody get in touch with any of the people I sent you?
No, but I'll resend them. I'll send them out. I know that everybody expressed an interest in possibly reaching out, so we'll try to pare that down. And I'll to make with the inquiry go, Kathy, to the board to see if they've gotten any new applicants, or is it just the same to your knowledge, the same 6, I think it was.
I can ask, I can ask.
Okay. If you could ask, I'll touch base with you tomorrow before, is town half day tomorrow?
Yeah,
Okay, I'll touch base with you before your close of day and if there's any new names. Or if you want to just, how about this? We'll simplify it. Just send along any names and I'll just divvy them up and send them out.
Okay.
Tomorrow afternoon, and that
Yeah.
should work.
Do we know, it looked like some of those from the original batch had checked multiple boards. Do we know if they've already been scooped up by other opportunities?
I think she checked through them and she didn't give me any that were otherwise on another board.
Right, is there ways to double check in the past, I guess, 3 weeks or 2 weeks since we had this discussion, if?
I can ask her. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think the Board of Selectmen secretary doesn't work on Fridays, but I'll double check.
And last thing before we wrap up, Jerry, in terms of inquiries being made beyond just town council, your experience with matters similar to the one we just dealt with, because we're going to be making them out formally and we're still on the record while that matter has been continued, is there anybody other than town council that you might suggest we should approach with the question that may not have, you might have mentioned it too, but maybe we need something more formal from?
No,
in
this
order
would be
to-
the only thing you need to do is to speak with them, but I would definitely look at the zoning bylaws. Section 200-12, and you need to look at 200-8. I would research that as a board, and you should also research as a board the determination from town council.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Unless anybody has anything new. If anybody wants to move to close, I'd be more than welcome to hear that.
I do. Make a motion to close the meeting.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Sorry, it's my bedtime. Michelle Bodie and I.
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Breen, I thank you all for your patience tonight. It was great. I have every hope that whatever we get back will help to make this conversation a much shorter one the next time around. Thank you, Jerry, for your help again, as always. Appreciate it. Kathy, always a stand-in, and welcome back from Florida. Welcome back to the circus.
What a welcome.
Have a very pleasant Friday and happy religious
Easter.
holiday weekend, as the case might be. Thank you.
Bye,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.